I never imagined a single glance could stir something inside me, yet it happened the first time I saw her. It wasn't dramatic like the movies, no slow motion, no background music, just a quiet corner in the library where I was flipping through notes and she walked past, searching for a book. Her presence carried a calmness that made me look up. I tried to return to my reading, but my eyes betrayed me, sneaking back toward her again and again. She caught me the third time, raising her eyebrows with a half-smile that showed she wasn't offended, only curious. "Why do you keep sneaking glances at me?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. In that moment, every possible excuse crossed my mind. I could have said I was distracted, or that she looked familiar, but the truth slipped out before I could stop myself. "Because I want to take you into a hug someday." She tilted her head, studying me, as if trying to figure out whether I was joking. Then she laughed, not mocking, but genuinely amused. "That's an unusual answer," she said. "People usually say hello, not that." I felt my face heat up, but I didn't backtrack. "I know it sounds strange," I admitted, "but I didn't mean it in a wrong way. I felt like you carry something heavy on your shoulders, and for some reason, I wanted to be the person who could lighten it, even just with a hug." Her laughter softened, and for a second her eyes flickered with something more serious, like my words had touched a hidden part of her. "You're either very honest," she said, "or very reckless." "Maybe both," I replied, and that made her smile again. We stood there in that quiet space, surrounded by shelves of books and unspoken stories, and for the first time, I felt like one had just begun between us. She didn't walk away, didn't dismiss me, and that in itself felt like a small victory. She extended her hand. "I'm Sarah." I shook it gently, trying not to seem too eager. "I'm Amir." The conversation flowed from there, simple and easy. We talked about the book she was searching for, about exams that seemed to pile up endlessly, about the small cafe across the street that, according to her, served the worst coffee yet had the best atmosphere. Her words were unfiltered, not forced, and I listened carefully, absorbing every detail like it was more important than anything else in the world. She caught me listening intently and said, "You really mean what you said earlier, don't you?" I nodded. "I do. I don't know why, but it felt like the only answer I could give." Sarah shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "People usually try so hard to impress, but you sound like you don't even care how it comes out." "I care," I corrected her gently. "I just believe sincerity lasts longer than practice lines." Something shifted in her expression then. Her guard didn't vanish, but it lowered a little, just enough for me to see the person behind it. She told me she didn't usually talk to strangers this openly, yet for some reason, she didn't feel uncomfortable around me. I didn't push for more, didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. I just stayed present, as if silence itself could be a kind of respect. When she finally left with the book she had been searching for, she paused at the door and looked back. "Amir," she said, testing my name as though she wanted to see how it felt on her tongue. That was the strangest introduction I've ever had, but maybe also the most honest. I smiled. "Then I'm glad." She nodded once, almost imperceptibly, and disappeared into the hallway. But the echo of that moment lingered inside me. I realized then that a single glance, when paired with truth, can open a door words alone never could. And though it began with something as awkward as a confession about a hug, I knew it had planted the seed of something real, something that, with time, might grow into the kind of connection both of us secretly longed for. The days that followed brought small, ordinary moments that somehow felt extraordinary because Sarah was in them. We didn't plan to meet. It just happened naturally. Sometimes in the library, sometimes in the corridor, other times outside when she was waiting for her ride. Each time, our conversations stretched a little longer. What started as a brief exchange of polite words began to feel like a rhythm, as though we were slowly learning to walk in step with one another. Sarah had a way of speaking that drew me in. She wasn't trying to impress, nor did she exaggerate. She spoke about simple things, her classes, her favorite authors, how she often stayed up late not to study, but because her thoughts kept her awake. When she confessed she hated mornings, I teased her about always looking more awake than me. She laughed and said, "That's because I've mastered the art of pretending." I listened more than I spoke. Somehow, listening to her became the highlight of my days. She noticed that too. "You're quiet," she remarked once, "but not in a way that makes things awkward. It's like you actually hear me." "That's because I want to," I answered simply, and she smiled as though no one had said it to her that way before. Our bond grew not from grand gestures, but from these little exchanges. Once, when I found her sitting alone with a notebook filled with scribbles, she admitted she wrote short poems, but never showed them to anyone. I asked if I could read one, and after hesitating, she let me. Her words were raw, describing loneliness in a way that felt too personal to be shared, yet she trusted me with them. I didn't compliment her just for the sake of it. I told her the truth, that her writing felt like it came from a place people usually hide. She stared at me for a while and then whispered, "You really don't filter your words, do you?" I smiled. I think the right people deserve unfiltered words. From that day, her teasing about my first confession, the hug, became more frequent, but also gentler. "So, Amir," she would say, half joking, "is this all part of your master plan to earn that hug?" I would laugh and shake my head. "No plan," I told her. "I just want to know you, the real you." She never admitted it, but I could see in her eyes that my honesty disarmed her in ways she didn't expect. One evening after classes, we ended up walking together under the fading light. The street was noisy, filled with chatter and car horns, but between us there was an odd calm. She asked me why I always seemed patient, as if nothing bothered me. I told her the truth, that I wasn't always patient, but I had learned that rushing often ruins what could be beautiful. She grew thoughtful at that, her steps slowing. "You talk like someone who's already lived through too much," she said softly. "Maybe I've just learned from watching others," I replied, though part of me knew she was right. My experiences had shaped me to value sincerity over speed. As our bond deepened, it wasn't all light moments and laughter. Reality has a way of testing connections, and ours was no exception. At first, the challenges were small, schedules that didn't align, missed calls, or assignments that kept us apart longer than we wanted. But soon, bigger things surfaced, and they demanded more from us than just casual conversation. Sarah came from a family with expectations carved in stone. Her parents valued discipline, focus, and achievement. To them, distractions like friendships with strangers were unnecessary. She didn't tell them about me, and I never asked her to, but I could sense the weight she carried, balancing what she wanted and what her family wanted for her. Once, she admitted, "They see the world in black and white. Anything that doesn't fit feels like a risk." I understood, even if it stung. It wasn't rejection, but it was a reminder that what we shared wasn't simple. At the same time, people around us began to notice. Friends whispered, classmates hinted, and a few turned our bond into gossip. I didn't care much about rumors, but Sarah did. She hated the idea of being misunderstood. She asked me one afternoon, "Amir, how do I know this isn't just temporary? That you won't get bored and leave when it's inconvenient?" Her question wasn't an accusation. It was fear speaking through her, fear born from experiences I could only guess at. I didn't rush to answer. Instead, I chose actions over promises. When she needed help preparing for an important presentation, I stayed late to practice with her. When she was overwhelmed by assignments, I shared notes and quietly encouraged her. When she doubted herself, I reminded her of the things she had already overcome. There were moments when she tried to push me away, testing if I'd retreat. She would reply coldly or pull back into silence, but I didn't let it break me. I gave her space when she needed it, but I always returned, showing her consistency, not pressure. I wanted her to see that I wasn't drawn to her out of curiosity or attraction alone. I cared for the person beneath the layers, the one who hid her struggles behind a smile. One evening, after a particularly long day, she finally let down her guard. We were sitting outside on a bench, the air carrying the faint chill of early winter. She stared at her hands before speaking. "You know, Amir, most people walk away when things get complicated. They don't want the wait. You stay. Even when I make it difficult. I met her gaze, steady and calm. Because you're worth staying for. I don't see you as complicated. I see you as real. And real is never easy, but it's always worth it. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she didn't respond with teasing or hesitation. She let the silence carry her answer. That silence was more powerful than any words. In the following days, something shifted. She didn't test me as much. She didn't question my intentions every time. Instead, she began sharing more openly. Her fears of failing, her dreams of pursuing a career her family might not approve of, the loneliness she often masked. Each confession drew us closer, not because I had solutions, but because I listened without judgment. Still, the outside world continued to challenge us. There were whispers, there was pressure, there were doubts she couldn't completely silence. But through it all, I never gave her a reason to question where I stood. And little by little, I could see trust growing between us. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't dramatic, it was slow, steady, and real. That was when she finally said something I hadn't expected. Amir, when you first said you wanted to hug me, I thought it was strange. But now I understand you weren't talking about something physical. You were talking about comfort, about safety. And I think you've already given me that, even without the hug. Her words left me still for a moment, because they carried more meaning than any confession could. It wasn't love yet, not the kind spoken aloud, but it was a deep acknowledgement of what we were building together. I knew then that every glance, every patient moment, every act of respect had led us here, to a place where she finally felt safe enough to admit what my presence meant to her. And in that realization, I understood something too. The foundation of love isn't built in a single moment. It's carved slowly, through trust, through actions, and through the courage to stay when walking away would be easier. Time moved forward, and with it, the quiet thread between us became stronger. What began as glances and uncertain conversations had grown into a bond built on trust. Sarah no longer looked at me with suspicion in her eyes. Instead, there was warmth, a silent acknowledgement that my presence in her life was no longer accidental. She didn't say it aloud, but her actions told me she trusted me, and that trust was the most precious gift I could have earned. One afternoon, as we walked back from campus, the air heavy with the golden light of evening, Sarah suddenly slowed her pace. She was quiet, as though carrying something unspoken. I didn't rush her. I had learned by now that her silence often carried more meaning than her words. Finally, she said softly, "Do you remember what you told me the first time we spoke?" I smiled. "That I wanted to take you into a hug someday?" She looked ahead, her lips curved in a faint smile. "Yes. Back then, I thought you were reckless. Maybe even foolish. But now, I think I understand what you meant." Her voice was steady, but there was vulnerability in her tone, as if she was letting me step into a part of her heart she usually kept locked. I answered carefully, "I didn't mean it as something casual. I meant it the way I still mean it now. That sometimes, a hug can hold more than words. It can say you're not alone, you're safe, and you matter." She stopped walking then, turning to face me fully. Her eyes searched mine, not for the first time, but with more intent than ever before. "And if I said I was ready now, what would you do?" I didn't move closer right away. I wanted her to see I wasn't rushing, that I valued her choice more than my own desire. "I'd hold you," I said quietly, "but only because you let me. And it wouldn't be about me. It would be about giving you the comfort you deserve." For a moment, she said nothing, but then she stepped forward and closed the space between us. She hesitated only briefly, then placed her arms lightly around me, as though testing the safety of the gesture. I responded gently, wrapping her in an embrace that was not rushed, not heavy, but steady and warm. It wasn't just a hug. It was the weight of countless unspoken emotions, the answer to every fear she had voiced, the reassurance she had been searching for. She leaned into me, and I could feel the way her body finally relaxed, as if she had been holding onto walls for too long and was finally letting them down. After a while, she whispered. You were right. This does say more than words. I didn't reply. Sometimes silence carries the truest response. I only held her a little tighter, not to keep her, but to remind her I wasn't letting go unless she wanted me to. When she finally pulled back, there was a softness in her face I hadn't seen before. No guarded smile, no teasing remark, just peace. Amir, she said gently, you've changed the way I look at things. You made me believe that not everyone walks away. Maybe you really were reckless when you said that to me at the start, but it was the kind of recklessness my heart and me make.